For those with good taste.
Welcome back, Tasties and Taste Stats, to another episode of FTW GT Weekly. It's your boy Lenny, joined again as always with the guy D33 Ray and Danity Kane himself, Dante. Hello.
I am Dante, not Danity Kane. All right.
This will be an abridged version of the podcast where we are just going to be running through a taste test real quick. Got a lot of movies that we've seen and not been able to talk about yet, so we're just going to run through those. Keep it brief, keep it light, have some fun. If you're doing all of those things at home now, keep it light on that like button by
get heavy.
Actually, get heavy on that. Get heavy. Keep it light on the dislike button. Unless you want to just dislike it, that's fine too. I'm cool with that. But also sub, drop some comments down below, hit that notification bell, all that good shit. Thank you. Let's jump into one we can all talk about first before we rip any other ones. So Dave, you saw Craven. You want to talk about Craven a little bit. I'll give you the floor since me and Dante have put our thoughts out there and expressed them to the world.
So not a bad movie. Going into it with low expectations, just based on it being a Sony Spider-Verse movie, pretty much already knew that it wasn't going to be good. Not to mention by the fact that the producers or the production company or whatever, Sony, already labeled it as being a dead universe prior to this movie coming out. I thought it was all right. I thought Aaron Taylor Johnson played pretty good role. I don't know. I just don't think it was a movie that I don't really think did a lot of good, but it also just didn't do a lot of bad. It was just kind of there in existing movie.
Did his abs get you to completion?
No.
I mean, think about it,
I don't think that he showed them enough.
Yeah.
Oh, you wanted more.
Yeah, I take a little longer to bust. You were pretty strong when we talked originally after you saw the movie about feeling like opposite from what most people do. I think me and you feel kind of similar on the movie in that, like, I thought the action was better than I anticipated it being, so I pushed it to a level higher than I thought that I would enjoy this movie, because it felt like they took at least the action aspect of it somewhat seriously, and I think adding gore added to the just the stakes, at least feeling like the action was hitting in a certain way, whereas if it was just like regular Marvel PG-13, I think that the movie is far worse, truthfully. But at the end of the day, like, it was just a kind of a mess of a movie that, to your point, what we've discussed already, like it being dead on arrival before even coming out made it feel even stupider, like sitting there listening to the way that they were talking and the way that the movie finishes by like setting up open-ended storylines to a movie that they've already told me prior to watching is never going to exist. And I think that's where like a lot of the hate for this one comes from. And I think it's just being grouped in with the other movies that have come out over the past couple of years, and that there's just the best that these movies can be is 2-star films, because you've diminished the value of the brand so significantly that people don't care when they're walking in, you know, and there's not going to be anything that you could do to win people over at this point. And that's where I understand punting before the movie even came out. But like, there's, do you guys know about like that AMC, not the movie theater, but like the Looney Tunes movie that's been shelved now for like 2 years?
No.
So
familiar.
There's an AMC, there's a Looney Tunes movie that John Cena's starred in, that basically it's finished, it's completed, but it'll never see the light of day, because in the movie rights thing of like people trying to buy up titles and stuff, basically like they aren't going to get paid enough money to justify what they put into it. And they've just determined instead to, for some legal reason, to shelf the whole property, and just take a loss on it. And I just wonder, with Craven, they pushed this movie back 3 different times. By the time it actually got out, they were like, "Don't see it. We're never going to touch this again." Why didn't they just shelf it? At some point, why not just?
I think
save
at that
yourself,
point, if
like,
the movie's already made, right? Like, put it out and recoup what you can recoup. Whereas like the Looney Tunes movie, they would have had paid more to put it out.
But here's my problem with that, dude. Is like they are going to make another Sony Spider-Verse movie because they're going to keep the rights. Like they want to keep those rights, and in order to keep those rights, they have to make the movies. So if you're going to end up rebooting this in 3 years or something anyways and go back at it, why not diminish the property even more than you have? You know? Like, why not? Like, this is our first time seeing Kraven.
Yeah.
Why not just keep him in the holster and give him an appropriate rollout instead of now, the next time I see Kraven, it's associated with this. The next time I see Morbius, like, it's associated with this. The next time I see Madam Web, I'm going to be like, oh, that was that really funny movie that came out in 2024. You know, like, at what point, like, when we know that the way these things work now is it's all about keeping the rights to these properties, so you make bad movies just to keep the rights. They want, like, Disney to keep having to pay them to use Tom Holland, right? Like, to do that, they have to keep making these movies. So inevitably, we are going to get another Spider-Verse movie. So I just think that, like, you could have not ever done this, and it probably would have been for the better strategically.
I suppose. I mean, what they obviously thought that they were going to be putting out, I think, hits when they first started writing these and potentially shooting these, and the chips did not fall where they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, they cast good actors, or, you know, everything's opinion, but, like, Leto, Tom Hardy, you know, the fucking Dakota Johnson's not great actors, but, like, you surrounded her with Isabella Merced and fucking Sydney Sweeney and all these people. You bring in Russell Crowe to do a Sony Marvel movie. Like, they tried. They definitely tried to put good actors in these roles, but it was just a failed operation from the jump. And I wonder how much, like Sydney Sweeney has been open and being like, I only did this movie so I could get anyone but you made. Like, that was her agreement, was like, I'll do this movie to get in good with Sony so that they'll approve the budget that I have for anyone but you. And it was a brilliant move for her career. But, like, she made that movie most likely knowing I am making a train wreck. Like, you couldn't have not been. She was probably sitting there making this movie, be like, with like crossing off days on the calendar, just being like,
can't wait till this is over.
Get me to anyone but you. I just did this to get the.
I mean, yeah, she probably, because she had to shoot right down the road from here, so she probably was just hating her life being around here.
Yeah, she's staying in, like, the Weymouth apartment complex at the fucking airfield. Probably wasn't staying there, but, like, that's where they filmed, right? So, yeah, you know, I think that that's more my thing, is that, like, they got all these actors, but I think these actors, a lot of it, outside of Tom Hardy, who I genuinely think loved playing Venom, I think that comes through in the way that the performance plays out. But, like, I don't think that I think Leto was like, I'm going to play this the way that I want to play it. And I don't give a shit about, like, the movie. I think that Russell Crowe was like, oh, that's a fat paycheck. Like, let me hop on this. And I'm sure, like, Aaron Taylor Johnson had some affinity towards the character and thought it was an interesting idea. But, like, he probably got there and was like, well, this is like a nothing movie. You know? Yeah. So it just feels like we've all known this for a long time, but this year dropping 3 of these movies in 1 year was a crazy decision. Like, you need to have more space between all of these, you know, or finish with Madam Web.
I don't agree with that. They needed to just be better. That's all that it came down to.
But if you're putting out 3 of these movies in a year, you think you're real Marvel. You know, like, you thought you were A1 Marvel, that, like, people were going to be anticipating everyone.
They saw Marvel was only dropping 1 for this year, so they were like, "Oh, we can move in now and fill the gap."
And instead, with each movie, you diminished your returns even more because each one was
worse.
Well, no, because I think Madam Web's probably the worst of the 3 from a quality standpoint. But I do think I would have enjoyed more if I was coming out of December having seen Madam Web. I would have been like, there was something successful about this. You know, instead of seeing in the reverse order, where I thought that the movies got less interesting by Kraven, less controversial, less like, what the fuck's going on? Like Kraven might be the most mediocre of the 3 that came out this year, as far as getting you to, like, feel something, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk Sonic 3 real quick, Dante, shall we? This was the least interesting one of the franchise so far. I felt the most burnout from these movies watching this, and I was just saying this in the year in review thing, this was the one. It wasn't Lion King Nosferatu. It was that I saw this and Lion King, I think, in the same night, and I saw this second. And by the time I was watching this movie, I was just mentally exhausted, and I think that probably hurt some of the viewing experience. But none of this felt new anymore.
So I had a similar experience watching it, but I almost think that speaks more to the movie, because I've gone to the movie theaters with little to no sleep, exhausted, and a good movie can still grasp my attention thoroughly throughout. Whereas this just started losing me 20, 30 minutes in, and I was just
it just felt like we were doing the same stuff again.
Not even the same stuff. It just felt like they didn't give it the same effort as the first two, almost. You know what I mean? And it sucks because this was our first introduction to Shadow in the movies, and he's one of my favorite characters from the video games, and I was all about it. And then after you get to see him, I'm just I don't really love the way they're going with this.
I can't really understand the power dynamics amongst all the characters.
What do you
mean? I don't know. I know Sonic's the fastest. Yeah. I know Knuckles is stronger, tougher, better fighter.
Tails is smart.
Yeah, and then but where does Shadow now fall in?
Shadow and Sonic are basically supposed to be the same. Shadow's supposed to be a clone of Sonic.
This is where I just think it's a little tough to they all feel too similar. Even the racing at the beginning. Yeah, Sonic's supposed to be the fastest, but you go out of your way to have this thing where he's not as he potentially is no longer as fast as the other character. I think it just got a little hard in this movie. The more you add characters into it, and then in the video game, you're just playing as Sonic, so the rest of them
play as all of them.
But they're just more side characters. And in this, I think that they're all meant to be kind of an equal playing field, and they all feel too similar to each other.
Yeah, I gotcha. I mean, overall, I just feel this felt like a lazier movie.
Yeah, it was again, Jim Carrey,
great,
just
yeah.
Dude, this is him being I'm 90s Jim Carrey again. Yeah. And I'm going to just be so fucking ridiculous. And you get a double dose of him in this movie. And I thought both versions of him played off of each other. Him playing off of himself for most of this movie was interesting. And him just being fully bought into being the crazy version of Jim Carrey that we all know was fantastic. I thought he was still a shining part of this movie. I didn't dislike this, but for most of it, outside of the Jim Carrey stuff, it just was kind of there for me.
Yeah, it was pretty mid.
And so you didn't stick around for the post-credit.
No, I didn't.
So the post-credit is Mecha Sonic.
Okay.
It's an
Metal
army
Sonic,
army of Metal Sonics.
An army of them, okay.
Yeah, that show up. So they do the race again at the end.
Yeah.
And when he's racing, he is oh, I won. And he's looking around. And then all of a sudden, somebody's coming to attack him. And it's all these machine Sonics, and somebody shows up and saves him, but I don't remember the character that shows up.
Huh. I'll have to look up the post-credit.
Yeah. So yeah, cool. Glad they're still making them. I'm glad that these are successful enough that we'll keep getting more. But I'm worried that they're just kind of paying by numbering.
Yeah.
Let's do the story. Let's roll out another character. Make them the arc for the next movie. Let's roll out another fast character and just kind of...
Yeah, it's just the first two felt like they put in effort, and now this is just kind of we'll just rely on the nostalgia here.
Yeah, we're gonna make money, so we have IP, we have characters that we can sell from merch. It just feels like it's becoming a watered down version where the first one, they had to listen to audience response. They had to put true care into making it because people didn't think it was going to be successful. Then all of a sudden they had a surprise hit and they come out with the second one. Then they do the TV show, and I think you just start watering it down at some point. So yeah, I think if you've liked these, check them out. But I wouldn't go out of my way to see it.
Definitely watch the first two, but the third one might disappoint you.
You guys want to talk about Fire Inside? I have not seen it. I do know Clarissa Shields.
I thought you saw it.
No. Okay. I do know Clarissa Shields though, and so I'm familiar with who it's about. I don't know anything about her story. Seems like it's getting decent reviews. How do you guys feel?
I liked it a lot.
Yeah,
I thought it was really good. I mean, also Brian Tyree Henry. I was telling Dave after we walked out, amazing in that movie, and he's been one of those actors that whenever he's in something, I'm all about it. He didn't disappoint at all in this. Yeah.
Is Brian Tyree Henry Wakanda?
No.
No, not
No.
not the big guy.
No.
Brian Tyree Henry. What do I know him
The podcast guy from Godzilla.
from? Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I know you're talking about. Cool.
Yeah, I thought it was really good, and I thought his performance was probably the best in the movie. I gotta say, like, as somebody who I feel like I watch and kind of pay attention to Olympics, not like crazy. I had never heard of Clarissa Shields prior to this, and I didn't know anything about her story.
She fights in MMA, so that's why she transferred to MMA, so that's where I've become more
Aware.
familiar with her. Yeah, is that she went from boxing to being one of the few boxers that is trying to like
bridge into MMA.
make legitimate strides in MMA.
So, like, obviously, like her big story that comes up is like being a 17-year-old in the 2012 Olympics for boxing, wins a gold medal for USA.
That was me.
What I remember from like the 2012 Olympics was like a different division. Was Katie Taylor being the Irish boxer to go in and win the gold for
which
that.
she's also fantastic.
Right.
Yeah. To this day, fantastic.
But no, I thought it was a great movie. Obviously, it showed the struggles and like what she had to go through with like her household drama, and then like being from Flint, Michigan, where obviously it's not really one of the a great place to live. There's not a lot of like support from just the
city's not prospering. Like the
Right.
community's not prospering.
So a lot of the movie dealt with like her being like she had family to kind of like be around and lean on, but like she was the only one who was like really like
Responsible.
yeah. And then the only person that gave her support for pretty much her entire like journey was her coach. Goes on, obviously wins the gold medal at 2012, and then like nothing that she thought would come out of winning at the Olympic Games happened, where she basically went home and it was almost like nothing had happened and nothing changed. She was right back in the same like kind of like hole that she was in before.
Because you don't get paid shit for the
Well, she went into it in the frame of the movie. Again, I don't know her actual story, so I don't know how much of it is embellished, but like she went into it expecting to get like all these endorsement deals and stuff if she got gold, and kind of be able to like help her family get out of poverty and all this and that. And then she gets home and they can't lock in a single deal. She barely got anything. Like, she's back where she was, and she's like, what the fuck was the point of all this?
Where does this stand in terms of like biography movies that you've seen this year? And Dante, you've seen a decent amount of varying. Like, this is a famous person, but you have things like Sing Sing. Like, you have like I feel like you went out of your way this year to see a lot of.
And like when we talked about our year in review, and I said like I think I discovered a new favorite genre of movie. Like this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. So like things like this, Sing Sing, Unsung Hero, like those kind of like underdog, kind of almost inspirational movies. Really are like my lane right now. Like I think as long as you do even halfway decent with those, I'm gonna like it.
So to answer the question, where does it like land as far as those types of movies for the year?
It's near them, but not amongst them. So I think it still falls behind Sing Sing and like Unsung Hero, but I ranked it 3 stars. I can double check and see how far off it is.
Do you have any other ones that you saw this year that like to rank this against?
Not really.
I mean, like we have SNL, I guess would be one, but
yeah, I mean, so like looking at my list, obviously like I have a lot less movies than you guys, but like this hits right in the dead center. This is 19 of 36 for me, like on the year. I think it was a good story, but there was really only like one like super emotional scene in this movie for me. Like I feel like when she goes on and like wins, it's kind of an uplifting, but the one scene like when she's like in the hole back at home, like trying to just figure out what do I do with my life, and like she goes to like sell her gold medal, and then like the pawn shop dealer like ends up calling her mother instead, and like you get this kind of like just emotional back and forth between the two of them, where she's like, you know, like this isn't about like us and the money that we need. Like you can't sell this gold medal because it's more of a like a symbol for the community. Like, hey, like if Clarissa can do this, then I can do this too. So like it was like that like crying scene between the two of them. I thought was like the only emotional scene really throughout the whole movie. Like when I watch movies that are like this, these biopics that are supposed to obviously like based on sports, like I don't know, I didn't get that like montage like where it's like we're building, and then like here's the crescendo. It was just kind of like, all right, we're gonna go to the Olympics. Oh, okay, she won the gold. Like I don't know.
I don't can't think of any like sports related ones that all year. The only other like biography that pops into my head like that stood out that you guys didn't see was I thought Lee was like fantastically done.
Yeah,
in like Lee Miller off of Civil War and stuff like was one that throughout the year like stands out to me as like the peak. And it doesn't have that, you feel the struggle, but it's not like a tearjerker emotional. Like I definitely agree with you, especially with sports related ones, that like to feel that struggle, like you do definitely need those moments that are like poignant and like hit you in those feelings so that you can feel the uplifting aspect of it when they come out the other side. And that's what makes like a sports related one like truly good.
I don't think Dave's completely correct in saying like there was only that one emotional scene. I think a large majority of the movie is emotional, but maybe that's part
it just doesn't touch. It didn't touch him in that way.
Yeah. Didn't touch us. No square.
But you got touched that way.
Oh yeah, I got touched
right in the feels.
Oh yeah.
Next up, let's talk Mufasa.
Mufasa.
I was surprised by this.
So, pretty much on par with what I said before going into it. I was like, this being a new story might give it a new life, and it definitely did.
I think that they took feedback that people hated about The Lion King. No, like specifically the fact of the talking without mouths moving and shit like that from the first one. I think that
they gave him a little bit more expression.
Yeah, I think that the emotions being able to be seen from the animals made this movie far more palatable and less off-putting than the last live-action Lion King was. This obviously follows story beats, I think, pretty heavily from The Lion King.
Yeah,
to where it's a prequel, but it's basically
like it
in
all
some ways
ties
The Lion King.
In a way that makes sense to the original story.
Yeah, but if anything, it's almost too much like the original in some ways, with the exception of like he doesn't get lost and go find Timon and Pumbaa. Like he goes and finds another pride of lions, you know? Like, but then he does still find like that, like it turns into Rafiki and what's the bird's name?
Zazu.
So like being
you find out how they become part of like the story, and like that part was all like fun and intriguing for me.
I like
that you don't immediately know who Scar is, but like you kind of pick it up pretty early.
I mean, I unfortunately knew before I went in that character was Scar. I thought it fed like into the giving. Like I thought this was one of those times where the backstory of Scar makes you appreciate more of the story you get in The Lion King. I do kind of hate the like claws in the hand and like foreshadowing a little too heavy-handedly.
Yeah. That was
what's going to happen. Like I didn't love that because like we all have seen so like 2 iterations of The Lion King now. I don't need you doing this. Like if this was what's coming out and I never saw the live action, I'd be like, oh, this is cool that they're giving me this backstory to the animated Lion King. Like I think I'd appreciate it more.
Honestly, I think it would have elevated this movie a lot if they just made it animated, because it basically was anyways.
Yeah, I don't mind this version of animation because I think today Dave kind of made the joke like live action is like quote unquote because it's all just
90%
CGI.
Yeah.
But I don't mind this being the new version of animation if it looks this good. Like I was immersed in it the whole time. I thought there was some fantastic visuals. Not only like the same stuff that we've gotten from other Lion King movies, but the scenes in the snow, I thought were pretty awesome. Like I liked having that environment change of them traveling through snow in the desert. Like that was kind of cool. I liked, I thought overall it was just fun. I thought the music was like catchy enough. And I thought all the performances and like the pack of lions, like the white lions that they come across, like I thought there was something like intimidating and different that they were able to introduce with those. So I like I started this saying, like I was surprised by coming away. This had an opportunity to be like a very bad movie, and it's definitely one of those things where I went in with like cautious, like being like, this is probably not gonna be great, and walked out being like, hey, like I kind of liked that.
Yeah, and just like you, I watched this and Sonic same day, but I
Mhm.
watched Sonic first. So like coming out of Sonic and being like, ugh, all right, wow, that didn't really live up to expectations. Then going into this, I was like, I already don't expect much from this. I'm not really thrilled to be here right now.
Mhm.
It it definitely like picked up for me, and I came out thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, I might have enjoyed. And no, I mean, seeing this first was probably for the best, but I think it made me like Sonic less because I was like, wow, like Lion King was better.
And I think for me it was the inverse.
Dog.
Like watching Sonic first made me like this more.
Yeah, that's fair. Cool. Where to go next? So we got
Baby G and Nosferatu.
yeah, and I have one other one for that. On top of that,
Oh yeah.
Nosferatu. This is probably hits a little different for me than it will for you, Dante,
I already know this.
because I saw the Last Voyage of the Demeter last year.
So I figured you were gonna draw like comparisons there because once I saw him on the boat, I was like, oh, wasn't there another movie that
It's literally like, so Nosferatu tells you the surrounding stories and gives you the part, like the little part of him and how he traveled across the ocean. But like the Last Voyage of the Demeter is fully about just that voyage to get him from one side of the ocean to the other.
And it's supposed to be the same, like in Last Voyage of the Demeter. Is that supposed to also be Nosferatu?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's Dracula. Yeah.
Is that just another way to say Dracula?
I don't know if they're the same character, but like basically the big bad vampire.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
like,
I
you know,
get
essentially
you,
what
I
it is.
get you.
And it finds its way on. It's like he's manipulated his way to get his tomb moved from what I assume is Transylvania. It wasn't Transylvania in the movie, but it's where was it?
I didn't read it off the map.
I
And
can't
don't think they
remember.
ever said it.
They did. They
Did
they? I think it showed up at the bottom of
So
the screen.
that's
New
one
Jersey?
yes, cesspool.
that's one take I'll have for you right away is like the Old English was like very jarring for me at times, like tough to follow what they were saying.
Like what they were talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah. I think it's a movie that like
Like that was a movie where I found myself really wanting subtitles just to kind of confirm what I thought I heard.
I thought that it's definitely a movie where you have to get immersed into the like feeling that they're putting out there.
And I don't think I was immersed enough.
No. Yeah. I thought I became immersed because of performances from like every single performance in the movie I thought was really good. I thought Willem Dafoe was a standout. Like he was
Yes.
fucking incredible.
Yo, that man was hitting the pipe the whole time.
Yeah, and he was like, dude, he was in his bag. Like
Yeah.
he was 100% in like, and he talked about a little bit that Robert Eggers was just like, they shared like the same vision on a lot of the stuff. And he was just so bought in, and like, you just watch a great actor become immersed into like that type of side character. And he
Yeah.
owned like every scene he was in. Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, and Aaron Taylor Johnson, though, I thought were all very good as well in this. And like into that matter, Bill Skarsgård, like that dude, his like, if you didn't tell me that he was playing Nosferatu, there was no way I would have ever known that
Yeah.
it was like an actual legitimate actor playing it. And that's not a negative. Like that's
Yeah.
to like his credit when he does these roles that are like he's definitely made a niche for himself of doing like these very weird
like
roles,
dark roles.
you know, like not just dark though, because like I think it's really easy to equate him just to playing Pennywise and now playing this, but like we saw Boy Kills World this year, and like another unique like a mute action star, you know, like at its
I think
own
that
thing.
even falls dark a little bit though, you know.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of aspects to this that I respect. Like I won't disagree with you. I think the performance is really good. I think visually it looks really good, like cinematography wise and everything. But overall, I don't know if it was just like the way they were speaking that like really pulled me away from it. And I found myself not really enjoying it.
I think you should watch Last Voyage of the Demeter now
Yeah.
that you've seen this, because I think you'll like
Because this
that.
ranked pretty low for me.
Yeah, I think you'll like Last Voyage of the Demeter more, because Last Voyage of the Demeter is more of like a Hollywood version of this. Like they're all both premiere movies.
Yeah.
But like that one's just an hour and a half, and it's very to the point, and it's more about like him. It's more slasher style, like him being on the boat and at night, like them being in terror. as opposed to this is more the summation of like all the stuff surrounding it, you know?
Yeah.
I did love like the culmination of this movie being like, she's just gonna have to fuck him.
Yeah.
Like,
I honestly didn't even get that that's where that was going.
Yeah.
Until it happened.
Well, I assume that's where you were losing some of the dialogue, but like, yeah, it was very clear, like Willem Dafoe's character being like, we're telling him this, but you do know the only way to actually break this curse is by tricking him into giving himself away to you, basically.
Yeah.
I thought like the acting performances overall are what won me over to being like super impressed. Like I don't have this super high, but I definitely enjoyed it more than you did. I actually do have it pretty high. I have it at 16.
Yeah. I had it pretty low. I know that. I had it at 1.5 stars.
Jesus. That is a severe underranking, people.
No,
this is on personal preference. That's fine. But
I had it at 2 stars.
Still think that's like severely underrated.
Yeah.
Like, the performances in this movie alone are better than 2-star performances.
Yeah. I think altogether the way the movie came together didn't really hit for me. And again, I think it was just a language thing.
Yeah, it's a little slow too. Like,
oh, definitely very slow. Like I felt every 2 hours of that movie.
There was only 1 2-hour.
All right, yeah, sure. Every bit, I felt every bit of the 2 hours of that movie. English, you know?
Yeah, old English.
Yeah.
Okay, and one other one here, Baby Girl.
Baby G.
I was like, I don't know where you were for level of excitement for this. I was looking forward to this movie.
I was not
decent
excited.
Amount. Yeah,
I saw the trailer and I was like, this is gonna suck.
Yeah, no, I wanted to see what they were going to do with it because, and like, I think there wasn't much of a story that I was like caught up in with this. And that's probably the disappointment in it from watching the trailer. I think you just like, there's not much subtext to what this movie is. It's
Even the movie doesn't have much subtext to what it is.
No, that's what I mean. Like the trailer, there was no layer beneath the trailer, you know?
Yeah.
I think if you were looking for a layer beneath the trailer, it wasn't there. With that being said, what the story is just a woman that is in her actual everyday day-to-day life has power, is perceived to be in power, and is yearning in her private life to not be that.
She just wants to get domed.
Yeah, she wants to be the sub. And she finds a person who does that for her and basically throws her whole life into whack.
So I'm sorry to cut you off, but like that's one of the things that I think pissed me off like right away with this movie is just the way that engagement came to be, right?
It's very like, casual and I don't know. Like he just kind of knew stuff.
Every time he was talking, I was like, who the fuck talks like that?
Yeah.
Like who that just it didn't have any sense of realism.
I think he was the most off-putting part of the movie. I thought Nicole Kidman was very good.
Yeah.
I also will throw this in there. I had one benefit in the theater that I saw this in a pretty full theater on the night it came out.
I did as well.
And I had one guy who was by himself in like the 4th row, like sassy gay black dude who like it just had like and you know from seeing this movie, there was just I was so fucking high too. I'll just throw that out there. Like I was very high. And he would just make noises or laugh.
Bro, there was a lot of points in the theater and I went with people to see this.
Yeah.
There was a lot of points in the theater where it was just so uncomfortable. All you could do was laugh.
Yes.
But like, because it's not a comedy, you don't want to outwardly laugh. So like, we'd be sitting there like trying to choke in our laughter and we'd hear a laugh crackle out in the distance and be like, all right, cool. It's safe to let it out.
There was still one point in this movie where I had to put my hood on and like
oh no,
kind of go into my like, what the fuck, you know? But my favorite part of that, dude, my favorite part of the whole movie for this guy was like when she's in the bed with Antonio Banderas and he's like, do you want to play around? And she starts to kiss him and she pushes him away and she's just like, get away. And she's like, oh yeah, you've never made me come. You've never made me come once. And the guy the guy just basically hits like the, oh no, he didn't. Oh no, she didn't. And I died, dude. I thought it was so fucking funny. There was just so many times where like, to your point, it was uncomfortable, like almost to a point how like sexual the movie was.
Yeah.
That you're sitting there and like you just hear this one little like sound bite towards the front that it like it validates your feelings so completely that like it
That you're like,
enhanced.
oh, I'm safe here.
Yeah, the audience viewing experience can either decrease or increase the experience, and that guy made my viewing experience so much better from like 10 rows in front of me just by me hearing him laugh at certain points that I thought it was fantastic. I wish that there was more to it. Like they set up the plot of how her relationship with him could affect her job.
Yeah.
But like, because he's not willing to truly, it's weird because he'll be like, I'm not trying to leverage this, but then he'll be like in the room with her and be like, I'll just go out there and tell them.
Yeah.
You know? And I think it was hard to read.
And like, I also didn't understand his relationship with like her employee. I forget what her name was.
Yeah. Like,
the other girl,
I think it's like one of those things where he's like, I'm going to date. I just like, especially she's like a hypocrite because it's like, you have a husband and she's like, no, you're mine.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like that's real to me. Like people possess things like that. And,
yeah.
Like, and then her flipping to use it, like it's just messy. Like they never stuck with one storyline. So it's like, hey, you could use this to take me down. And then a few scenes later, it's like, I could use my power to affect the people around you. And then I liked that the girl flipped it on her and was like, you're going to give me what I want, the promotion you're not talking to me about and stuff like that. But I thought
like, because there's like almost no context in this movie, it leaves you to fill in a lot of the blanks by yourself. Yeah. And like that girl pulling that move, right, to like get her promotion that she's been begging for the whole fucking movie. And then you get the guy that you find out later, like he got like because he was an intern, he got some big job with like Kawasaki out of it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like throughout the movie, you're forced to believe like there's like a genuineness to it, but then you're like, was this all a play for him too?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is the storyline itself. There's one very basic concept through the movie that's easy to follow.
Yeah,
and then everything else around it's a little bit messy. And I think it just comes down to, did you like the performance that Nicole Kidman put on, or did you not? And I think for me, her being at the age that she's at and trying something like this, I think I appreciate it. Like the girl goes on her hands and knees and drinks milk out of a dish.
Yeah.
So like there's scenes that are like very much like she had to do this and like
degrade yourself.
Yeah. Almost, there's like a level of like letting yourself go to the movie.
Another moment where like I found myself like uncontrollably laughing was when he put her in timeout in the corner.
Yes. Yeah, and he just stand and stare at the at the wall. Put the dunce cap on.
It was one of those just, wait, did he just, oh fuck.
Yeah. And then he's just like, okay, now get on your hands and knees and come to me. And like, here's one thing I'll say really quickly that I liked the ending shot.
With the dog?
Where it's him. Yeah. Because like, I'm like, and I don't understand it necessarily. I feel like
so
the
dog confused me even more because like I get the analogy of it all.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, is that the same dog from the beginning of the movie?
It is, yeah.
And that's where I was like, this was all a setup.
There's got to be, I'm sure it's one of those things that if you go and look up, like
the lore behind it or whatever.
There's things that explain what they were showing. But yeah, I liked that this idea that like it was just like he's just trained her like a dog, basically. Yeah.
But then it's so like the analogy was the clear part, but I was like, hold on. So was that his dog the whole time? And like,
was she a dog the whole time?
There was never, I know, right? Like, was that all a lie? She was never a real person.
Yeah.
There was no like tip of the hat, like aha moment. It was just kind of like, this is what we're showing you.
Yeah.
Make of it what you will.
I thought it was a cool shot because like you putting them parallel with everything you saw in the movie, you're like, what? Like it is all like very much.
Yeah.
He just handled her like an animal. Like, but that's what she wanted at the same time. So.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. Also, one other takeaway of this movie, and we can stop, is I don't think I ever want to hear Nicole Kidman moan ever again.
She was in it, dude. Dude, the movie starts in such a way that you're already like, what the fuck?
Well, because with no context, it's just like it starts with her fucking, and then immediately after goes to masturbate. And I was like,
like laying face down on the carpet.
I was like, I'll
just fucking herself, dude. Yeah. But like, it's just throws you right into this character.
Yeah. And like, you get to understand it later when she does the whole, like, you never made me come. And it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, it's different. It's definitely not a top movie of the year for me, but it's somewhere in the middle. Like I had it 45.
If you read the Letterboxd reviews on this, you would think you're dead wrong.
They said it's like the best thing ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that though. I think it comes back to like it's an edgy performance, and that's gonna pull people to stand behind it. Like, because there is like sexuality is empowering, right? And we talked about this before the movie came out. I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast, but there is this thing in Hollywood right now with younger men being infatuated with older women, and it's figuring out different takes and ways to approach that story. And I think that this was just a very like 50 Shades version of this story. And
I've never watched 50 Shades, but I was kind of drawing that analogy the whole time.
This is way better than 50 Shades.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, 50 Shades is really bad.
Okay.
And like the characters in 50 Shades are significantly like I think that Nicole Kidman's character is intentionally unlikable, like in some ways, and she knows that. Like she's cheating on her husband. She's got kids at home. I loved the daughter.
I forgot about the daughter. The daughter was great.
She was the daughter was the audience.
There was a lot of progression to the daughter's character that we didn't really get like
scenes for.
Yeah, exactly.
Like but I think that they did a good enough job with the couple of scenes you got to like she already was kind of mature in some ways, but childish in others, and like, but I thought she was the audience at some point of being like,
okay,
like that scene in the kitchen where it's after she breaks up with Antonio Banderas, and she's kind of just like, it's okay, you know, like, and yeah, you fucked up, but like, just come home, like, face your failures, you know, like some of that. And I thought she did a good job of posing that side.
Yeah, like she was almost like the adult in the situation. Like, hey, I've had my own cheating scenario. Like, you're good. We get past this. Come home.
Yeah. One other movie for me that I'll just throw out there. This was the last thing I saw of the year. I saw it last night. A movie that's not going to have any buzz, and it's probably only going to be in the theaters for a week. I just happened to catch it. Bloody Axe Wound. On the list of Shudder horror movies that I've seen this year, like I recently just saw that.
Shudder horror?
Shudder is a horror channel or like streaming service.
Oh, okay.
But they've started making their own
movies,
like movies essentially.
Yeah.
So that movie Getaway that I talked about a few weeks ago with Nicholas Frost was a Shudder horror movie.
Okay.
So a lot of those like lower budget like horror movies will only be in Framingham are probably IFC or Shudder like promotion. So this is an interesting take though. It's kind of confusing in some ways. It's only an hour and 20 minutes long. It's a super short movie. But it's basically the daughter of a slasher killer.
Okay.
They own a video store and they use the stuff from the kills to make movies that they sell. And
that already sounds like an interesting premise.
Yeah, and so the dad is the killer who's been raising an adopted daughter and showing her the ropes, and she thinks she's old enough to take over like the family business essentially. But he's not ready to. He tries passing it on to like the male coworker, saying it's more of a guy's game and like stuff like that. But he's injured from something that happened a year ago that's not healing any longer for him. So he isn't able to go out and like make the kills anymore. He almost dies. So she takes on he hands it on to the guy. The guy fails miserably. She ends up getting the opportunity to step into the role as the serial killer. So it's all about the tropes of horror movies in here too. So like he gets the yearbook every year for the local high school, and he basically picks like a group of friends based on like the drug use, sexual stuff, like all those like
that's
tropes.
How he picks his targets.
And he picks out the targets and they go and kill them. She ends up, when she takes control though, going into the school and becomes a student at the school. And she starts meeting all of the people that she's supposed to kill.
Yeah.
And to the point where there's a girl that she tries to kill who stabs her and like fights back, like set a trap. And she becomes like infatuated with this girl and falls for her. And now it's
so
like
we get romance.
It's
too?
a rom-com with the backdrop of she's supposed to kill this girl. And her dad's pissed because she's not doing what she's supposed to be doing while he's stuck like in bed. So the story eventually flips to him being like, I have to take back control of this situation and become the killer again.
Yeah.
And goes from there.
That sounds good.
It's an interesting idea. I think like the first 30 minutes of execution aren't great. It's produced by Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Hilary Burton, they're married in real life. He's in the movie. Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays like the movies that they're making. He plays the serial killer. So like the very first person you see in this movie is Jeffrey Dean Morgan, which I thought was I would have been really surprised if I hadn't read a little bit about the movie before I went in to see that they were producers. But it's like, throw your name attached to it. It's going to help some people go and see it. It's a super minor role. But yeah, they produced it and it exceeded by the end of it. I was like, this was a fun little take. And in some ways it reminded me of earlier in the year, we got that movie from the perspective of the villain of the slasher, and you spent the whole movie in the perspective of him, which was a letdown for me. I didn't love that movie. A lot of people thought it was fantastic. This was another one of those unique takes, though, on the slasher genre, which I'm very fond of, and I thought it was a fun little way to flip the story. It's like, it tries to be funny at too many points where you're like, the acting's not good enough for it to be like what it intends to be from a comedy standpoint, but it's got its moments, and yeah, it's fun. The kills were pretty good.
I'm gonna have to check that one out before it gets pulled.
Yeah, it's only getting like one showing a day, so definitely try to slide that in. And yeah, that's what I got. Okay, that's all of them.
Cool.
Hey, really quick before we get out of here, can I just tell you guys about a movie I just found out about?
What?
Merrily We Roll Along.
Never heard of it.
I just happened to be on Instagram, and there was a post with Paul Mescal, Bernie Feinstein, or whatever, the girl from Booksmart, the Jonah Hill's sister, or whatever.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay,
Bernstein, is that her last name? Yeah,
sure.
And the kid from Dear Evan Hansen, the main actor in it. They took a picture together, and they're on this movie called Merry We Roll Along, which is going to be being filmed over a 20-year period. It's a production of a movie, of a play. I read this. I went on Wikipedia just because I was like, that doesn't make sense that they're filming a movie over 20 years.
Because they want to show them naturally grow up.
Exactly. So it's based on a 1981 stage musical. And to just go through the premise, a talented Broadway composer, Franklin Shepard, abandons his friends and his career to become a Hollywood producer, and it took place over the course of 20 years in reverse chronological order.
So they're not only filming it over the course of 20 years, but they're going to show it in reverse. That's crazy.
Yeah. So they've already started filming stuff. I guess they filmed with a different star in 2019. They started filming this. Something happened with him with controversy outside of the movie, so they took him out, and that's how Paul Mescal got attached to it, and they refilmed some of those scenes. There was also somebody else that they've already filmed scenes for. But yeah, I think that's kind of a crazy premise for a movie to over the span of 20 years be working towards like just filming small scenes here and there.
For a movie, that's like crazy. I mean, like if it was like for like a series or something, like it makes more sense. But for a singular movie, that's insane.
Too many things can go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you already saw they've recast something.
Right.
Yeah.
They've already recast twice where they've had to reshoot like singular scenes, like, but they're doing so little at a time that it's easy for them right now to backdrop it. And it's interesting because you're gonna get real aging.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna see the progression of Paul Mescal from a fucking 25-year-old starting in Hollywood to see where he is. Yeah, like so I think that it's like a super it has the chance to never be seen. I think is the most interesting part of this. Is it's something that could get made and worked on for 10 years and then they just cut. Like it never sees the light of day.
That's unfortunately too likely to happen.
Yeah, or you end up in 2040 with this movie that's like so unique that's been filmed over the past 20 years by the same actors that you've gotten to hear. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And it's a premise that I don't care. Like I wouldn't see this movie, but now knowing
the backstory.
Yeah, I probably need to see this when it comes out 20 years from now.
All right. We'll be buying our tickets with our ARP discount.
Yeah. We'll be catching the matinee special to that one. Yeah. I'm gonna be 60 and still giving a shit about that. Yeah, that's also crazy though to pick stars and to not like you don't know what their value is going to be in Hollywood in 20 years. Like Ben Platt already doesn't have a fan base, like that. It's just interesting. Yeah, it's a brave step.
Like, what if like Paul Mescal like transcends and all of a sudden he becomes too expensive for them to make this movie with him?
Well, I think he's probably already just signed on to it, and I hope that's what I assume that's what you'd be hoping, right?
A 20-year contract.
So, I mean, you just sign a contract to that one movie. It's not 20 years. It's like
it is 20 years.
Like, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like he signed on for he knew what he was signing up for at the time.
Yeah.
He like that's this contract's already been signed. It's not whether or not you got.
And you're
bigger.
probably just shooting like I guess the idea would be you're just going to shoot this like small like one scene a year.
You show up for like 2
yeah.
days on set to film specific scenes, and then you don't see these people for a year, and then you pop back in for a weekend and do.
You just have to find a way for it all to fit in to everybody's schedule, though.
Yeah, but that's where I say like he signed on for one movie, knowing that it's this idea that's going to take that long. And they're assuming, like to your point, though, I think that the roll of the dice for them is it could equally be that nobody gives a shit about any of these actors. But if Paul Mescal transcends, well, now you have this movie that comes out 20 years from now that people are like, he's been working on this. It's like the Megalopolis thing, right?
Yeah.
Like he's been working on this for so long, and it's gone through all these different things, and here we are, you know?
Yeah.
So I came across that in like the one piece of like news thing, like it was just a picture, and I was like, well, that's interesting, and then read about it, and I was like, this is because I think I read like 17 years, and I was like, how the fuck does that work? Am I reading? They must have did a typo here that the movie is over a 17-year period. Nope, they're filming it over 17 years. So
that's sick.
Cool. That's all I got. Anything else for anybody?
That's all, folks.
Been doing a little TV watching. We got a new Star Wars show that's been out the last couple of weeks.
I've heard it's the Goonies.
Skeleton Crew. Yeah, it's kind of just like a watered down Goonies, I suppose.
Have you watched? While we're talking, I watched the Goonies in the past week, or I watched like the first hour of it or so before I fell asleep. When was the last time you watched the Goonies?
A couple years ago, probably.
It's never for me.
You should watch it.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy though, the performances in that movie, because they're all kids, and like it's of its time very much. And so watching what's his name, the kid who fucked Michael Jackson,
Corey
Feldman. Yeah. Watching like Corey Feldman, very much in my mind while he's making this movie is like, I'm the biggest actor in the room. I'm the one who's super talented, and he just goes to 11 in every single scene that he's in, like to the point where it's like terrible, I think in some ways. And then there's some actors that are like, it's just like a mess of like the way the performances are done, because it's like some kids that are doing movies already, then there's ones that just are whatever, and then the scripting's crazy. Like Brolin, you're like, he seems like the adult in the room, and he's good. The kid from Indiana Jones plays his role to a T. Like he's probably the best at it.
Data.
And then like Feldman is just, you're watching every single scene being like, you are just trying to be the guy. Completely. Like you're so full of yourself in every one of these scenes, and I can just tell that you were probably the worst kid to be on set with at that time. He still is. Like you see his live performances, his musical performances, and it's a train wreck. But sorry to take away from Star Wars.
Great movie.
It's like,
I mean,
it's very
I know it's
good.
something I need to see. I just
it's on Max. If anybody has not watched it in a long time or hasn't seen it, like it's on Max. That's where I was looking for something to watch while I was falling asleep that I could just kind of throw on, and it was like, I haven't watched this in forever. You know, whatever, throw it on.
But yeah, I'd say it's the Skeleton Crew. All in all, I don't know, like kind of like a C- show. It's kind of boring. I don't really care for any of like the child actors' performances.
I question, why is this a thing?
I don't know.
It just feels weird, doesn't it? Like
they probably just threw a whole bunch of different ideas like, hey, we want to make more stories within the Star Wars universe that don't necessarily need to connect to anything. They just want to kind of build upon like the universe that Disney owns now. So this is probably something that's stuck. But
doesn't this feel a bit like what I talked about with the Sony Spider-Verse stuff? Where at some point you're going to have a good property, right? Like something that people like and think is good, but you won't get people to watch it because you've pumped out shit for 2 years now for TV series that your fan base just trashes. In this idea, I've heard decent things from people, to be honest, like better than C-, but it's so far off the beaten path of what any other Star Wars stuff is that it has no impact whatsoever on your like appeal. And if you don't like it, it's just another thing that you put out that had no grander impact on anything. And it's just something for people to be like, Star Wars sucks.
Yeah.
You know, like I just think we're at this point with Star Wars where you haven't done anything good in What was the last good thing they did?
Mandalorian.
Force Awakens. Oh, yeah, okay. Force Awakens, Mandalorian's after Force Awakens, right? So Mandalorian first couple seasons, basically, right? And you've only put out bad TV shows since then. And it's been 5 or 6 bad TV shows.
Yeah, Boba Fett wasn't good. Obi-Wan wasn't really good.
And yeah, I was gonna say Anakin, but that's Obi-Wan, right? What was the last one that they just did that you guys didn't like?
Oh God, I'd already
Acolytes?
forgot that existed.
Acolytes.
Yeah, Acolyte.
But this is my point. Like you just put out so much bad stuff that it just feels like all your franchise is bad, and the only thing that was good came out in the 70s.
Yeah, and your 3 major movies that you've put out of it. The only thing that I think Disney has done well since accruing the rights has been The Mandalorian. I mean, they've gone back and did like the Clone Wars, like season 7, like that was good.
Yeah, Rebels
has
bad,
been good.
Bad
Batch has been pretty.
Okay,
alright.
so they're animated, has a level of expectation that you think it's going to be decent. I think people like the what's the thing that's kind of like Marvel What Ifs that they do? It's like the bunch of different animated versions of Star Wars stories.
That was okay.
Those I, as a person who doesn't follow Star Wars, I've watched a few of those and thought like, this is interesting. You know, I don't remember the name of the show. But.
I can't recall it either.
Yeah, I just fear for like a franchise that's that big that they're going to reach a point where they've diminished returns on the movies are always going to do a certain level, but like TV series, let's get a little bit more selective and like the next one you put out, don't make it a throwaway about kids that can be compared to the Goonies. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The decisions that they've made, and it's again, it's an IP thing. Right? Like it's the same stuff we're talking about with the Sony Spider-Verse thing, where they want to just keep putting stuff out.
Put it out to keep the rights.
They keep the rights. They keep the IP moving. They create new merch. Like it's all of that shit. Like that's why they're doing it. It's just transparent. And again, it waters down your true fans that actually give a shit and aren't just buying stuff for kids.
Huh.
I have too many opinions on Star Wars when I don't really care about it.
I've still never watched any Star Wars anything ever.
But this is the thing. Dave, to what we're talking about, as a genuine, true fan of Star Wars, you can't tell him the juice is worth a squeeze on going and watching Star Wars content anymore.
No.
Because you could only point to the 70s as being like, there's 6 movies there's 3 movies that were fantastic in the 70s. There's a mixed bag of the early 2000s. And then everything else is just garbage. And I think you'd actually probably, like, because as a person who doesn't love it, I don't hate the most recent 3. I thought Force Awakens was pretty good, actually. But there's clear holes.
My guess would be, as like somebody who's obviously been a fan of the Star Wars universe for 20 plus years or whatever. Obviously, like my introduction was the original trilogy, right? And then as I am a child, I get the prequel trilogy. Yeah. Which
you see yourself in Anakin, like
right.
You're the right age, like all of that. Yeah.
I think that's the idea of what they're doing here. They need to capture a new audience of children and kids and get them excited about the universe and about the show. So as what they do in the future, they have new fans to grow upon. I kind of feel like that's kind of what they're doing. And that's also probably what I would assume was some of the idea with what they did with the newest 3 movies with The Force Awakens and everything with Rey Skywalker.
Yeah.
And that was more about getting more girls probably into the universe and getting them more into the fandom, showing them a hero that they can, like, I don't know, idolize and follow and kind of see themselves in. And they're trying to kind of continue to do that with
Isn't that what
kids.
Princess Leia was?
I mean, sure, but how many young girls are going to go and watch a movie from 1977?
Where the thing about movies from the 70s too, young actresses did not look like teenagers in the 70s either. You know, like inherently they all felt like they were 30, even though they were like Molly Ringwald in like the 80s feels like she's like 27 or 8 now versus the way they cast people, I feel like.
I gotcha.
But here's my thing, Dave. All of what you said was valid. But it's all people in a boardroom deciding what will sell to somebody, not what would actually be.
It's
and
not the creators
this is the
excited
misstep,
about
right?
something,
Like you can't make people interested in something just by giving them somebody that looks like them. You know, hey, like Finn's in this movie. Maybe we can bring in like an ethnic background to care about Star Wars, because like we haven't had somebody since Lando that people saw themselves in that were people of color. You know, like they went with Rey because we did a male lead of Star Wars. Now maybe we'll recreate something by having a female lead of Star Wars. Oh, like we haven't done kids in a long time, but the thing that's drawing your kids in is the animated shit. It's not doing Goonies. And the problem is, like, are any of these characters from Skeleton Crew going to transfer to being something that's in a movie? So then what did you draw in? Because this doesn't tie into the grander scheme of it either. Whereas at least like Marvel, some of them are trash, but the idea is that you're giving context to characters that will eventually be used potentially in a grander form. And people will be able to be like, oh, I remember them from this, you know?
Yeah, it's no longer a creative passion project of a story and a universe from somebody who just wants to tell a really cool, fun, unique story. It's all about how much money can we make now.
Yeah, it's like Toys R Us closed down and they just hired the people that were in the boardroom for that and put them into a room with Star Wars and said, what can we merchandise that would have sold in your stores? It's a sad downfall. Like, as a fan of movies, you want to see something like Star Wars reclaim the throne as being what it was. But I think as a person who sits in front of a microphone every week to criticize shit, like, there's nothing that they've done that would let me think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel for their decision making. Because even if this was good, even if you told me this was fantastic, it doesn't lead to anything except for maybe a Skeleton Crew season 2. And if I wanted to watch seasons of treasure hunts, I'd watch Outer Banks.
So basically, it's just like the bigger picture nobody cares about.
Yeah, and you're just not going to draw interest. And like in the streaming wars, like this isn't helping Disney gain subscribers. No. So what is it? It's just, what is the ends to the means at some point?
Throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah. You know, why haven't we gotten more Mandalorian or anything? I don't know how it ended. Like, is he dead? Like, I don't know. Like,
no, they're making a movie.
Yeah. Okay. So nobody's going to see that shit. I guess they're fortunate in that what's his name is so big now.
Pedro.
Yeah. They're fortunate, but you don't even know it's him, right? So
it's, I guess, out of all the projects they've done too, it's being made by Jon Favreau along with what's his name? Damn, he's done a lot of like the animated work. He did a lot of work with the Clone Wars.
Hans Zimmer.
No. Dang.
Let's hold space.
Well, either way, it's being done with people who genuinely like care about the lore and the universe and the information, and they're drawing upon a lot of like detailed knowledge of the universe to build their new story. And I think it's been told very well in such a way that it's a passion project for them. Mm-hmm. And it shows in the actual like success of the show. And
I'm sure that's a movie that I think will end up being good because of that fact. How much, last thing I'll say on this, and it's a question, how much of this is J.J. Abrams' fault?
Dave Filoni, that's the guy.
Okay, I know who he is. Yeah. But how much of this is J.J. Abrams' fault?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of J.J. Abrams. So,
man, you talk about a guy whose star burned bright for like 4 or 5 years, and then it's just died a death. And it's because like Hollywood started doing this thing where they paid really successful filmmakers to run entire sections of their business instead of saying, just make this movie and make it to the best of your ability. They started charging people with building entire teams to build franchises. And I think it's just been a miss in the past few years.
It worked with Kevin Feige, so it must work with everything else.
Yeah, and that's it. That's the strategy there, right? Is like late 2000s, Marvel's every single thing they put out is fantastic because they have one person orchestrating the vision for everything. And you look what DC's trying to do. You did it with Snyder, and now you're trying to do it again with Gunn, right? Like, remains to be seen because some people might be good at this, but it seems like as a whole, the strategy is not working. J.J. Abrams, it was that Super 8 was fantastic and had this old feel with a modern movie. And then you did Star Trek and he did so good with them that Star Wars was like, oh, this is the guy that will give us the visuals we're looking for, but also appreciates and is nerdy enough to build this world. And he just shit the bed.
Yeah, he was also like Lost. He was a big part.
Yeah.
It seems like for like all these projects, like he's in it at the very beginning and then hands it off and then just lets it just kind of like trail and fall off and fall away.
Which that's the problem with being the guy who's supposed to oversee 10 projects instead of being the guy who's meticulously overseeing one project. And that's where I think Mandalorian, to your point, like Favreau is a passion guy. Like he attaches himself to directorial stuff that I feel like we as an audience believe that he's passionate about. So there's a trust and a faith that will bring you to the theater to see it because he's attached to it. Regardless what the story is or who the people are in it. And it's the same thing I would have said about Abrams coming off of Super 8, which is a movie that I am very fond of. Like I remember like the movie theater experience of that movie just playing out like similar to what we're talking about, like the Goonies and stuff like that, like this like younger cast of really good actors that turns into a movie that like it was super relatable. Like these kids making their own home movie that turns into like this bigger alien invasion story. Like those, there's these things that Abrams did that I was like, dude, this guy, like you go and watch Star Trek as a person who didn't grow up. I grew up watching Star Trek, but not like a fanboy for it by any means. And you see that Chris Pine Star Trek and you're like, oh shit, like the lens flares, like we're getting everything. Like this is the whole experience. And you just think it would translate. It just, he's not focused enough, it feels like. Same thing, like Marvel's smart because they have Feige, but then you put Gunn in charge of the Guardians and Gunn just cares about the Guardians and it's a passion thing for him. And they have to figure out how they fit into the bigger world. But when you're making these smaller parts of it, you have people that genuinely care. Favreau was doing Iron Man.
Yes,
like you
the whole MCU kicked off from Favreau basically running and directing Iron Man as a passion project. He like absolutely crushed that movie when at the time there was no expectations for superhero movies. Like were almost they're all relatively never successful. So it was kind of thought to be, hey, this is just dead in the water. It's going to be its own thing. Who
Batman
cares about
Begins
Iron Man?
Predates Iron Man.
Other than nerds.
That would have been the only thing.
Maybe, yeah. But Batman had more to stand on than obviously an Iron Man.
Yeah, they have actual good movies in their history or movies that people are fond of. You also have Nolan's approach not being a superhero movie so much as being grounded in that his character does not have superpowers. So you can focus more on the human aspects of it as opposed to the stuff that was supernatural about it, extended past it. Iron Man was the first one where you had to like suspend. I don't know. I guess Iron Man's somewhat similar to Batman in a way.
Yeah, there was no powers.
Built upon the powers. So it's probably the right way to start the franchise. But there was still a level of like hokiness, I think, that you could have had with Iron Man that he just didn't have. It was good casting and good directing. But yeah, I think it's checks and balances. I think that it's great if J.J. Abrams is in charge, but J.J. Abrams has to hire the right people to be hands-on those projects once he's no longer hands-on.
And then also, pay attention and step in when things go off the rails.
Yes. And where has he been in all these failures? Because I think there's also accountability in that, like, he should step out and at least be telling his fan base, this is what I was thinking. This is what we were trying to accomplish. This is maybe where the missteps are. I mean, we talked about Sonic, right? Like Sonic ends up being so successful because they took a step back and took accountability and took audience feedback to improve their product.
On the initial design.
Yeah, and we live in a world with social media where you can very quickly
see what people think.
Yeah, and make the correct adjustments to fix that product. And it doesn't feel like they're taking any of the feedback that they get off of each one of these shows and movies. They're not taking this feedback and like at least making you as the fan feel like
value.
Like you matter and that you're not just a dollar that they're trying to recoup.
Fair.
You're looking at the original Sonic.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I just wanted to see it again.
Look at the original Stitch. That's another good one.
Yeah. He does not look nearly as scary in the little trailer they're playing before movies right now.
No.
But he was terrifying. I loved it. That's the Stitch I wanted. I'll never forget, we were recording the podcast first time we saw that, Dante.
Yeah.
It was like, this is incredible. This is a grade A horror movie. Like that thing's terrifying, but I love this. Yeah. You have any other Star Wars thoughts, Dave? I feel like I just ran over Star Wars takes.
No. We're good. I mean, my take was that not that good.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Cool. Well, that's it, I guess, guys. That's all, folks.
Yeah. That's all, folks.
Okay. Make sure to drop a like, comment, share, and subscribe on the podcast. Until next week, we bid you follow. Do. Peace out.
Bye.
Bang, bang.
Skeet skeet.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Holster.
For those with good taste.
Throw it off and get my gunshots off.
I'll only put one in the air, so I need a second.